The massive Vlisk warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their obsidian hulls absorbing the sun's light rather than reflecting it. From his command throne aboard the flagship Inevitable Dominance, Supreme Commander Cthar watched with satisfaction as his fleet surrounded the blue planet. Defensive capabilities? He asked, his scaled skin shifting patterns in the dim light of the bridge. Primitive, Supreme Commander, replied his second-in-command, Tavex. Rudimentary satellites, basic projectile weapons, nascent energy shields. Nothing that poses a threat to hegemony technology. Kthar's mouth parts twisted into what passed for a smile among the Vlisk. This would be an easy conquest, another victory to add to his considerable record. The Vlisk hegemony had subjugated 17 systems in the last solar cycle, all brought into the greater harmony of their rule. Establish the blockade, disable their communication satellites, but leave enough functional to transmit our message. I want them isolated, but able to hear us. Within hours, Earth's orbital defenses had been neutralized. Vlisk fighters systematically disabled military satellites while leaving civilian communications partially intact. The blockade tightened like a noose around the planet. On Earth, chaos erupted. Television broadcasts worldwide interrupted regular programming to show the alien vessels now visible in daylight skies across the globe. World leaders scrambled to establish emergency protocols while military forces were placed on their highest alert levels. Fighter jets scrambled only to be turned back by electronic countermeasures before they could even approach the alien vessels. "What are they waiting for?" asked the American president, staring at satellite imagery in the White House Situation Room. "Making us sweat," replied his Secretary of Defense grimly. "Psychological warfare. They could have attacked immediately, but chose not to." Deep beneath the Carpathian Mountains in Eastern Europe, in a facility unknown to all but a handful of the world's most senior officials, another meeting was taking place. The steel-reinforced doors bore no insignia. The complex did not appear on any map, and the personnel who worked there officially did not exist. Director Elena Petrova stood before a holographic display of Earth, red dots pulsing at specific locations: Giza, Stonehenge, Nazca, Göbekli Tepe, Easter Island, and 24 others. Her steel-gray hair was pulled back in a severe bun, her posture military straight despite her 60 years. She turned as Dr. Eris Thorne entered the command center. "The Vlisk have arrived sooner than we anticipated," she said without preamble. Thorne nodded, his tall frame stooped slightly from years hunched over research. Unlike Petrova's crisp uniform, his clothing was rumpled, and his wild hair suggested he had been pulled directly from his laboratory. "Are we ready?" he asked. "We have no choice but to be ready," Petrova replied. She gestured to the holographic display. "The precursor network has been dormant for millennia. We've spent decades studying it, yet we've only scratched the surface of understanding, and now we may have to activate it fully." Thorne moved to a console and brought up detailed readings from the sites. "The energy signatures are stable but dormant. We can initiate the primary nodes at Giza and Stonehenge, but I cannot predict with certainty how the entire network will respond." "And if we don't?" asked Petrova. "Then the Vlisk strip mine our planet for resources and hunt for any trace of precursor technology, likely destroying it in the process." Thorne's voice was quiet but firm. "They seek what we guard, whether they know it or not." Petrova nodded grimly. "Begin preparations for Ancient Dawn Protocol. Priority Alpha." As the Aegis Directorate personnel rushed to fulfill her orders, screens throughout the facility suddenly flickered. A face appeared, inhuman, with multiple eyes arranged in a pattern around a central mouth structure filled with articulated mandibles. Its voice, translated through some unknown means, resonated with authority. "People of Earth, I am Supreme Commander Cthar of the Vlisk hegemony. Your planet has been placed under protective quarantine for integration into the greater harmony. Resistance is unnecessary and would only result in needless suffering. Your primitive weapons cannot harm us. Your political divisions make you weak. Submit to biometric cataloging and planetary resource surveys, and the transition will be peaceful." The alien commander's multiple eyes narrowed. We are particularly interested in accessing all geological and archaeological data from your civilization's history. Compliance will ease your transition into the hegemony. You have 24 of your hours to respond. As the transmission ended, Petrova and Thorne exchanged knowing glances. The Vlisk guest's specific interest in archaeological data confirmed their fears. They're looking for the precursor technology, Thorne said quietly. Just as we suspected. Then we must ensure they don't find it, Petrova replied, her voice hard with determination. Activate the primary node at Giza. Let's see if we can create enough energy disruption to confuse their sensors while we prepare our defenses. 20 minutes later, deep beneath the Great Pyramid at Giza, Aegis operatives accessed a chamber unknown to conventional archaeology. They carefully positioned specialized equipment around a crystalline structure embedded in the bedrock. Following instructions relayed from Thorne, they initiated a sequence that would awaken the dormant energy node for the first time in thousands of years. On the inevitable dominance, a Vlisk sensor operator suddenly straightened. Supreme Commander, I'm detecting an unusual energy fluctuation from the planetary surface. Thar moved to the sensor station. Source: a structure in the northern hemisphere of the main continental mass, in a desert region. The signature is unusual. It doesn't match any known human technology. Elaborate, Thar demanded. The energy pattern appears to be creating subtle gravitational microdistortions. It's affecting our long-range sensors, creating a form of interference. The operator sounded confused. But it's so subtle, it could simply be a natural planetary phenomenon we haven't encountered before. Thar's skin patterns darkened with skepticism. On a primitive world? Unlikely. Investigate further. Send a scout drone to the coordinates. Back in the Aegis facility, Thorne monitored the readings from Giza with growing excitement. It's working, he told Petrova. The primary node is active and creating the precise energy signature we hoped for. It's subtle enough that they might dismiss it as a natural phenomenon, but strong enough to interfere with their more sensitive scanning equipment. And our other sites? Still dormant, but the activation at Giza seems to have created a resonance effect. The other nodes are stirring. It's as if they recognize that their purpose is needed again. Petrova studied the holographic display, where the red dot at Giza now pulsed with greater intensity, and faint lines of energy had begun to connect it to other sites. Call an emergency briefing, she ordered. All section heads and senior researchers. It's time everyone understood exactly what we're dealing with. An hour later, Petrova stood before the assembled leadership of the Aegis Directorate. The room was tense with anticipation and fear. For those of you not fully briefed on Project Lacuni, I will be direct, she began. The structures we monitor at sites around the world are not merely archaeological curiosities. They are components of a planet-wide defense and energy system left behind by an advanced civilization we refer to as the precursors. She gestured to Thorne, who activated a detailed holographic model of Earth with glowing lines connecting various points. The precursors visited Earth approximately 75,000 years ago, Thorne continued. They established these sites as part of a network that appears to have served multiple functions: energy generation, defense, possibly even climate regulation. The technology operates on principles we're only beginning to understand, manipulating fundamental forces that bridge quantum mechanics and gravity. And you believe this ancient technology can help us against the Vlisk? Asked Security Chief Navarro, skepticism evident in his voice. We know the Vlisk are searching for precursor technology throughout the galaxy, Petrova replied. Their specific request for archaeological data confirms it. What we don't know is whether they've ever actually found any functioning examples before. The network was designed to be activated in stages, Thorne added. What we've done at Giza is merely the first step, activating a primary node to begin the awakening process. Full activation would connect all sites into a coherent whole, creating effects we can only theorize about. And the risks? Asked Dr. Yamamoto, head of the physics division. Thorne's expression grew grave. Substantial. We understand perhaps 10% of how this technology functions. Full activation could have unpredictable consequences for Earth itself. Geological instability, atmospheric disruption, even temporal anomalies are theoretical possibilities. A heavy silence fell over the room. So we're choosing between alien conquest and potentially destroying our own planet. Navarro asked quietly. I prefer to think of it as a calculated risk versus certain subjugation, Petrova replied. And we're not activating the full network immediately. We'll proceed incrementally, monitoring effects at each stage. As if on cue, an alarm sounded. A technician burst into the room. Director, a Vlisk scout craft has been detected approaching the Nazca site. In the skies above the famous Nazca lines in Peru, a sleek Vlisk scout ship descended through the atmosphere. Its sensors probed the ancient geoglyphs, detecting faint energy signatures similar to those observed at Giza. Interesting, murmured the craft's commander to himself. These primitive drawings actually conceal something beneath them. Initiating deep scan. As the scout ship powered up its penetrating sensor beam, something unexpected happened. The ancient lines on the desert floor briefly glowed with an inner light. A focused pulse of energy, invisible but immensely powerful, shot upward from the center of the geoglyphs. The scout ship's systems immediately went haywire. Propulsion failed, guidance systems reset, and power fluctuated wildly. The commander barely managed to abort the mission and pull his damaged craft back to orbit. In the Aegis Command Center, cheers erupted as they received confirmation of what had happened. Nazca's defensive protocols activated automatically in response to the scan. Thorne exclaimed. The site interpreted the Vlisk scan as a threat and responded. Did the Vlisk ship transmit any data before it was repelled? Petrova asked urgently. Some, but the energy pulse corrupted much of it, replied a technician. They know something unusual happened, but not exactly what. Petrova's expression remained concerned. Kthar won't dismiss this as easily as the Giza readings. We've revealed our hand earlier than I'd hoped. On the inevitable dominance, Kthar received the scout ship's report with growing anger and curiosity. So, the primitives have access to technology they shouldn't possess, he mused. This changes matters considerably. Could it be precursor tech, Supreme Commander? Asked Tavex hesitantly. The precursors were quasi-mythical even to the Vlisk, an ancient race said to have seeded advanced technology throughout the galaxy before mysteriously disappearing. If it is, this mission just became significantly more valuable, Kthar replied. And dangerous. We cannot allow any precursor technology to remain outside hegemony control. His mandibles clicked in decision. Prepare the penetrator array. Target the anomalous energy signature near the circular stone formation on the island landmass. Supreme Commander, the penetrator may cause significant surface damage if... Then the humans will learn the price of deception. Kthar cut in sharply. Execute. The inevitable dominance repositioned itself over the northern hemisphere. On its underside, a massive array of instruments aligned and powered up, generating a concentrated beam of particles designed to slice through planetary crust to analyze deep geological formations, or in this case, to destroy whatever lay beneath Stonehenge. At Aegis headquarters, alarms blared. They're targeting Stonehenge with some sort of penetrating beam, shouted a technician. Impact in 30 seconds. Petrova turned to Thorne. Can the site defend itself like Nazca did? Stonehenge is a much more significant node, Thorne replied urgently. But it needs to be fully activated first. Do it, ordered Petrova without hesitation. Thorne's fingers flew across the control panel. Transmitting activation codes to the Stonehenge team now. In the rainy fields of Salisbury Plain, a small Aegis team worked frantically at equipment disguised as archaeological monitoring devices. As they received Thorne's signal, they connected a series of crystalline rods to specific points around the ancient stone circle. The Vlisk beam lanced down from the sky, a searing column of energy that parted clouds as it descended. But just before impact, the ancient stones of Stonehenge began to glow with an inner blue-white light. The light spread rapidly, flowing along buried ley lines that had been invisible for millennia. When the beam struck, it met not earth and stone, but a shimmering dome of energy that had materialized over the entire site. The Vlisk beam splashed against it like water on rock, its energy dissipating harmlessly across the surface of the shield. Then the dome pulsed once, and a shock wave of energy radiated outward in all directions. In orbit, the Vlisk ships nearest to Stonehenge experienced sudden system failures. 3 smaller vessels lost power completely, drifting helplessly. Even the inevitable dominance shuddered as wave after wave of strange energy washed over it, temporarily disrupting gravity and communications. Thar gripped his command chair as the lights flickered on the bridge. "Status report," he demanded. "Unknown energy type, Supreme Commander," replied a science officer, genuine fear in his voice. "The readings? They match old records, theoretical patterns associated with precursor technology." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. "So," Thar said finally, "the humans possess functioning precursor technology." His skin patterns shifted rapidly, displaying complex emotions no human could read. "Raise all shields. Recall damaged vessels. I want full sensor analysis of every anomalous site on this planet immediately." In the Aegis Command Center, Thorne stared at the readings in awe. "The Stonehenge node is fully active," he reported, "and it's communicating with the other sites. The network is waking up, Director." On the main display, lines of energy were now visibly connecting multiple sites across the globe. Giza, Stonehenge, Nazca, Easter Island, Göbekli Tepe. Each glowed with increasing intensity as the ancient network stirred to life. "The Vlisk will realize the scope of what they're facing soon," Petrova said. "We need to accelerate our timetable." "Director, we're receiving calls from every major government," interrupted Communications Officer Lin. "The energy signatures are visible on their sensors now. They're demanding explanations." "Tell them," Petrova began, but was interrupted by another alarm. "Multiple Vlisk vessels repositioning," announced the tactical officer. "They're moving to cover every major site in the network. I think they're planning to hit them all simultaneously before the system can fully activate." Petrova's face hardened. "They forced our hand. Dr. Thorne, initiate full network activation. Now." Thorne hesitated only briefly before entering the command sequence they had theorized but never dared to implement. On screens around the room, the holographic Earth lit up as ancient power, dormant for millennia, surged through the planetary network. At each site around the world, the same phenomenon occurred. Structures that had stood as silent monuments for thousands of years awakened. The pyramids at Giza emitted beams of light from their peaks into the sky. The stone heads of Easter Island glowed with inner fire as the ground around them revealed previously hidden patterns. At Göbekli Tepe, the ancient T-shaped pillars hummed with energy that caused the air itself to shimmer. In orbit, the Vlisk fleet found itself engulfed in a web of energy that seemed to emerge from the planet below. It wasn't like any weapon they had encountered. There were no explosions, no directed energy beams, no conventional attacks. Instead, the very fabric of space around their ships began to distort. On the smallest vessels, gravity fluctuated wildly, causing systems to fail and crews to be incapacitated. Medium-sized cruisers experienced localized time dilation effects, with some sections of the ships operating seconds out of sync with others, making coordinated action impossible. The largest battleships, including the inevitable Dominants, found their advanced sensors overwhelmed by signals that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, rendering them effectively blind. "What is happening?" Thar demanded as his flagship shuddered around him. "Explain this." "It's some kind of space-time manipulation," the science officer struggled to explain. "They're not attacking our ships directly. They're attacking the space our ships occupy." The officer's composure broke. "Supreme Commander, these effects match exactly with theoretical precursor capabilities. The legends were true." Thar watched in mounting horror as 3 of his ships simply vanished from sensors, not destroyed, but somehow shifted elsewhere in an instant. Another vessel reported that its crew was experiencing time at half the rate of the rest of the fleet. Communication was breaking down across his once-perfect formation. The humans have control of it, he realized aloud. They've awakened the precursor defense system and turned it against us. In the Aegis Command Center, Thorne worked frantically at his console, trying to direct the network's immense power. I'm not controlling it exactly, he explained to Petrova. It's more like suggesting. The system seems to have its own intelligence, interpreting our inputs according to its programming. Can you target their flagship? Petrova asked. I think so. Thorne adjusted parameters on his display, directing gravitational focus now. In orbit, the inevitable dominance suddenly found itself at the center of a gravitational anomaly. The massive ship groaned as forces pulled at it from multiple directions simultaneously. Internal bulkheads buckled, and engineering reported critical stress on the main reactor. Casualties on decks 4 through 17, reported Tavex, struggling to maintain his footing as the gravity shifted. Hull breaches in the lower quadrants. Supreme Commander, we cannot maintain structural integrity under these conditions. Thar stared at the view screen, which showed the seemingly innocuous blue planet below. His mandibles clicked in a Vlisk expression of realization. We have gravely miscalculated, he said quietly. This is not a primitive world waiting to be harvested. It's a precursor world. The implications staggered him. The Vlisk hegemony had searched for functioning precursor technology for generations, finding only fragments and ruins. Yet here, on this unassuming planet inhabited by a seemingly primitive species, was a complete, operational precursor defense system. The greatest treasure and the greatest threat the hegemony had ever encountered. Supreme Commander, your orders? Pressed Tavex as another section of the ship reported critical damage. Thar made his decision. Signal all vessels. Disengage from orbit. Retreat to the system's edge. Retreat. Tavex couldn't hide his shock. But the hegemony will be very interested in what we've discovered. Thar finished for him. This is not a defeat, Tavex. It's reconnaissance. We now know what this planet harbors, and the hegemony will return in greater numbers with better preparation. His multiple eyes narrowed. But first I will speak with these custodians. On Earth, Thorne noticed the change in Vlisk activity first. They're withdrawing, he announced, surprise evident in his voice. All vessels are breaking orbit and moving toward the outer system. Petrova didn't allow herself to show relief yet. They could be regrouping for another approach. Keep the network active. Director called Officer Lin. We're receiving a direct transmission from the Vlisk command ship. For us specifically. Petrova raised an eyebrow. They know about Aegis? How? They're requesting communication with, I quote, those who control the precursor network. Petrova considered briefly, then nodded. Put through. Visual on main screen only. Don't let them see our facility. The screen flickered, and Ktharis' alien visage appeared. Despite damage visible on the bridge behind him, the Vlisk commander maintained his composure. I addressed the guardians of the precursor technology, he began, without preamble. You have demonstrated your control of powers beyond your evolutionary right. The hegemony acknowledges this unexpected development. This is Director Elena Petrova of Earth's Aegis Directorate. Petrova replied, her voice steady. Your unprovoked aggression against our planet has been met with an appropriate defense. We demand your immediate and complete withdrawal from our solar system. Ktharis' skin patterns shifted in what might have been amusement. You are in no position to make demands. You control technology you barely understand, technology that rightfully belongs to the advanced species of the galaxy. We understand enough, Petrova countered. And the fact that this technology awoke to defend Earth suggests it was left here deliberately for us to use when we needed it. To emphasize her point, she nodded to Thorne, who activated a holographic display of Earth showing the fully activated network, a glowing web of power encompassing the entire planet. Your fleet has experienced only a fraction of this system's capabilities, Petrova continued. Withdraw now, or we will be forced to demonstrate more of what it can do. Thar was silent for a long moment, his alien features unreadable to human eyes. Finally, he spoke. We will withdraw beyond your lunar orbit, but the hegemony will not forget what we have discovered here. Earth is now known to us, and the knowledge of what it contains will spread. Other species, other fleets will come, some with far greater power than mine. Then they too will discover that Earth is protected, Petrova replied firmly. Without another word, Thar terminated the transmission. On tactical displays, the Vlisk fleet continued its withdrawal, moving beyond the moon's orbit in an orderly, if somewhat damaged, formation. A cheer went up around the command center, but Petrova silenced it with a raised hand. This isn't over, she warned. It's just beginning. The Vlisk will return, and they won't be alone. We've revealed our greatest secret to the galaxy. Director, interrupted Officer Lin again. I have the United Nations Secretary General, the American President, and 7 other world leaders all demanding immediate explanations. They've detected the energy network and observed the alien withdrawal. They want to know what just happened. Petrova exchanged a look with Thorne. For decades, the Aegis Directorate had operated in the shadows, known only to a select few in each major government. That secrecy was now untenable. Tell them I'll address an emergency session of the Security Council in 1 hour, she said finally, and prepare our briefing documents on the precursor network. It's time humanity learned what's been hiding in plain sight all along. As the command center bustled with activity, Thorne approached Petrova privately. The network is stable for now, he reported, but keeping it fully activated is causing minor seismic disturbances along major fault lines. We need to scale it back to a monitoring state soon or risk geological consequences. How long do we have? 24 hours at this level before we start seeing serious effects. But there's something else. Thorne hesitated. The network contains vast amounts of data, information the precursors left behind. Now that it's fully active, we're beginning to access it. What kind of information? Petrova asked sharply. Too early to say completely, but star maps, Elena. Detailed galactic charts showing hundreds of other precursor sites across thousands of light years. And what appears to be a warning. About what? I don't know yet. The data translation is ongoing. But whatever the precursors were afraid of, it was significant enough for them to leave this defensive network behind. The Vlisk may be the least of our concerns. Petrova absorbed this silently, then straightened her uniform. One crisis at a time, Dr. Thorne. First, we unify Earth's response and establish control protocols for the network. Then we worry about ancient warnings. Hours later, Petrova stood before an unprecedented gathering of world leaders in a secure video conference. The faces on the screen represented billions of people who had just experienced their first confirmation that humanity was not alone in the universe, and that Earth had nearly fallen to an alien invasion. What you witnessed today, Petrova began, was the activation of a planetary defense system left on Earth approximately 75,000 years ago by an advanced species we call the precursors. The Aegis Directorate was formed 50 years ago when patterns connecting various ancient sites were first discovered. We have been studying and gradually understanding this technology ever since. And you kept this secret from the world? Demanded the Chinese premier. Technology that could have advanced humanity by centuries? Technology we barely understood, Petrova corrected. Technology that could have destroyed our planet if misused. The Directorate was formed with representatives from all major nations precisely to prevent any one country from attempting to weaponize these discoveries. But you did weaponize it today, noted the Russian president. We activated it for its intended purpose, planetary defense. And we've only scratched the surface of its capabilities. The American president leaned forward. The aliens, these Vlisk, will they return? Almost certainly, Petrova confirmed. And they'll bring reinforcements. Earth is now on the galactic map, leaders of humanity. We can no longer pretend we're alone or hidden from advanced civilizations. Then what do you propose? asked the Secretary General of the UN. The Aegis Directorate must be expanded and brought into the light. We need the best scientists, the best minds from every nation working to understand the precursor technology. We need unified planetary defense protocols and joint decision-making structures for network activation. You expect us to hand control the most powerful technology on Earth to an international body, scoffed one leader. I expect you to recognize that we face extinction if we don't, Petrova replied bluntly. The Vlisk blockade was just the beginning. Their commander made it clear, others will come. Some will want to control the network. Others will want to destroy it to prevent us from having it. Either way, Earth is now a target. Silence fell as the implications sank in. We need time to discuss this among ourselves, the Secretary General finally said. But I believe we can all agree that today's events have changed everything. Humanity must adapt quickly. As the conference continued, Petrova stepped away momentarily to where Thorne waited with new information. We've translated more of the precursor data, he whispered urgently. The network wasn't just left here randomly. Earth was specifically chosen as a safe house of sorts. The precursors were fleeing something that had already destroyed most of their civilization across the galaxy. They left these defense systems on various worlds, hoping some species would eventually evolve enough to use them. Against what? Petrova asked, a chill running through her. The data calls it the consumption, some kind of force or entity that the precursors couldn't defeat directly. The details are still unclear, but one thing is certain. The precursors believed it would return eventually. The defense network is as much an early warning system as it is a protective measure. Petrova looked back at the screen of arguing world leaders, then to the displays showing the Vlisk fleet retreating to the outer solar system, and finally to the holographic Earth with its web of ancient power now pulsing with renewed life. So we've announced our presence to the galaxy, just as an ancient threat may be re-emerging, she murmured. Perfect timing. There's one more thing, Thorne added hesitantly. The data includes what seems to be a communication protocol, a way to contact other worlds with active precursor networks. We're not alone in this fight, Elena. There are others out there who might help us. Petrova's expression hardened with determination. Then we'd better hope they're more friendly than the Vlisk. Because, ready or not, humanity has just joined the galactic community. She straightened her shoulders. And we'll need all the allies we can get for what's coming. As the dawn broke over a world forever changed, the ancient network continued its vigilant watch, activated once more after thousands of years of silence, ready to defend its chosen world against whatever threats might come from the stars above. The Vlisk blockade had been repelled, but as Kthar had warned, it was only the beginning. Humanity now faced a universe more complex and dangerous than they had ever imagined, armed with technology they were only beginning to understand. The coming days would determine whether they could unify enough to master the precursor legacy and secure their place among the stars, or whether they would fall to threats both external and internal. For now, Earth had earned a brief respite, but across the vast gulf of space, news of the awakened precursor world was already spreading, rippling outward like waves from a stone dropped in a still pond. And not all who received this news would respond with caution. Some would come with fleets far larger than Ktharis. Others would come with promises of alliance and knowledge. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, perhaps the ancient enemy that had driven the precursors to extinction stirred once more, sensing the activation of long-dormant systems. The game, as a forgotten voice had once warned, had only just begun.